how's it going, guys? I'm Clossington. I'm sort of an up-and-coming dissident right YouTube channel. I go very in-depth on political theory and sort of the underpinnings of reactionary and neo-reactionary thought. I'm something of a disenchanted paleo-libertarian that has kind of seen the light of Mencius Moldbug, and I'm here to sort of preach the good word of reaction and reactionary politics. And in particular, I've been talking to the Right Cafe about secessionism and the concept of exit, which is sort of the genesis of this stream.
Oh, that's weird. This is kind of weird. So if you couldn't see it, I kind of minimized Discord, but the crop still remains. It would kind of like glitch out for a sec, but whatever. So basically, yeah, we're kind of going over the topic of the stream being secession. We're going to have to first start off with what would cause it, sort of or I guess an overview, if you will.
Wait, can they actually hear us?
Yeah, yeah,
Like in the,
yes.
like I
Let me I guess you can test it because it picks up my audio, so I guess you could do it. You got the link, right?
yeah, they say that they can't hear us.
Oh, that's weird. Let's see, maybe now they can hear us. Keep in mind there's a 30-second delay, so might not be immediate. Okay, fixed. Okay. So I hope they can hear us now. I think what happened was I put the audio gate kind of low, so let's just talk for a minute.
All right,
Okay,
so
good, it works. So yeah, I think considering how I'm a bit more experienced with this, we might have different ideas or different ways of defining the Boogaloo, how we think it would start, etc. So I guess you can go over first, what it means to you,
like what the Boogaloo and secessionism means to me in particular.
yeah, like what factors would most likely cause it, where it would
Yeah. Uh, oh, oh, oh. They can't actually hear you. Like I can't hear you on YouTube's end. Like
oh, it's because of the noise gates. Fuck. Okay. Got. Fuck. Okay. I really need to put the live stream in over chat. I got rid of the noise gates.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
you're kind of messed up.
Okay. In what way specifically? Like
Oh, okay. So you're I can actually hear you now.
Okay, that's good. All right. So yeah, okay. So luckily, so if you couldn't hear us, he was going to go over what the Boogaloo would entail, what he think would cause it, where it would start, what would the consequences be, you know, that sort of thing. So I guess you can give your theory first.
Oh, like my specific opinions.
I guess so.
I'm a lot more cynical about secessionism as sort of a concept. I believe that something along the lines of institutional capture is a lot easier and efficient, and a lot more attainable of a goal than something like a hard breakaway. That's sort of my general leanings. Those are sort of my general leanings, but I'm kind of open to the idea of exit rather than like perpetual schizophrenia.
Yeah. The issue is as long as certain urban coastal centers, and as long as as long as they are active and within your nation, you're kind of not safe. I mean, keep in mind we're running out of time. We're not if we don't have our own nation state, we can't really have demographically secure ourselves. Think of it and also not only can we if we do get a nation state, probably maybe a rump state in the north and the west and something, and maybe in the easternmost point would be like Appalachia, or like, and maybe the westernmost point would be the Sierra Nevada. Unless we have a nation state that like appears from nothing, from like gets spit out of the United States, I don't think we're going to have the ability to avoid integration, avoid mass migration, avoid neoliberal colonialism. And unless we have an enforcement arm, if we are perpetually locked out of having a majority by the government and due to the demographics of the nation, we can't really do anything. Also, we won't really ever be safe. Like, Chicago, Los Angeles is going to start exporting their people to, everywhere. And if not just that, Mexico and Latin America is doing it as well. But also the reason why secession is important is because of the idea that it's a virgin state. A virgin state, I don't know, there's probably someone who came up with a theory like it, just not by the same name. A virgin state is essentially a new state, a state that is recently formed and doesn't really have a solidified identity. The big opportunity that presents is that we can fill that void of identity. Imagine a United States, or imagine, let's say, most of the Midwest and maybe a lot of the South left the United States, and a ton of reactionaries and dissident right-wingers got into the new government. Because first of all, there would be no incumbents. If we were to have, democracy, I think that's going to be inevitable. We're going to need to use the democratic process to get rid of the democratic process. And it would probably be easier than just taking over the whole of the U.S. So what we could do is if we were to, get a rump state, which would have a government that has not yet been formed, I think it would be very easy for like maybe 100 well-funded, well-connected reactionaries and dissident right-wingers to essentially take over the government. Imagine a government that's unironically run by Nick Fuentes.
Wasn't that kind of the whole idea behind the what was the Free State Project to take over New Hampshire through with a bunch of libertarians taking over?
Yeah, that was, I believe, a libertarian project, although dissident rights is a bit more diverse ideologically. And I think the issue is that if the consequences of becoming somewhat of a great power, because if we get a lot of territory, like, the borders I suggested, from I guess the Mid-Atlantic, the parts in Mid-Atlantic that weren't like completely cucked, like Baltimore or northern New Jersey, all the way to Sierra Nevada, and maybe beyond that, like eastern Oregon or Washington. If we had that, we probably wouldn't be as powerful as the U.S., but we'd still be a great power. And one of the consequences of becoming a great power, even if we took over the entire government, is that you're going to have disparate groups trying to come up with who may fundamentally disagree with each other. So you might have a ton of if it was solely dissident right wingers, you might have a couple reactionaries, a couple theocrats, maybe a couple libertarians and paleocons. It would be a whole range of groups, and we'd have to come towards a ideological median or mean. And that's kind of harder because if you look at the political compass, the fringe groups kind of forming an average would if you just because of the faulty shape, they may not end up on a position that makes up any of them. Like, imagine, the political compass, and you have, a ring that sort of runs from the center at the very top, and then kind of, forms a crescent moon of sorts. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
If you were the center of that, depending on the shape, might not be within the shape itself, just because of the way it's created. So that's an issue. Are we going to get sort of National Socialist or something to agree with a paleoconservative? Are we going to get a monarchist to agree with a libertarian?
With an ANCAP or something like that?
Yeah, no. So I think
there's the Hoppe sort of proprietarian argument of sort of the fusion of monarchism and anarcho-capitalism, but I'm not sure how well they'd mesh with like a National Socialist or something like a paleocon.
I think the issue is that dissident right's is compared to most other movements quite young. Maybe not as young as like the Bernie Bros, but actually I think they're younger because the Bernie Bros have an established position, while we really don't. I would assume the user base of the dissident right on average is like maybe 24 or 25.
Yeah.
So I think what we would learn if we constituted a new government is that we would have to come together for the sake of pragmatism. And here's the thing: as long as the end goal is we are demographically secure, we aren't being subverted by foreign threats, we have social conservatism, we don't certain forms of degeneracy wouldn't be allowed to be publicly promoted or even exist in the open. As long as we reach certain goals that I think would be, sort of staple policy positions, I think, we could probably solve the other problems through, like, federalism. Or, maybe the Nat Sox would be able to rule over, like, their own state within this new nation state. Yeah.
Like, I have a couple objections to, I guess, this the entire logic of this. First is, it's kind of LARPy to assume you can just kind of break away from this massive United States entity, the heart of the cathedral, and not feel any sort of influence from the cathedral.
Yes.
Second is that it's a purely negative, like, anti-progressive mentality, and that usually ends up in like something like economic illiteracy, like what you have in like North Korea or Iran right now. My third concern is exactly how you kind of consolidate without falling into sort of the global homo empire. What, like, if something like some place like Scotland seceded from the UK, what makes you think that they wouldn't join the EU?
It would be global homo, indeed.
Integrate into, yeah, especially if you're talking about something like a nation based around the hinterlands of the United States.
Well, the thing is, it's not going to be completely contiguous. Like, I guess Chicago. Well, although I think
What's even worse?
Well, no, like Chicago is actually pretty easy to get rid of because it's surrounded by water, or surrounded by the Great Lakes. So you could probably make it like a city-state and like maybe give it to Canada or something. There aren't really that many other big cities that. Okay, there would be big cities that would have a disproportionate impact compared to the area they take up. But they wouldn't be enough. Like, the biggest cities, Los Angeles, New York City, San Francisco, what else? Boston, etc., wouldn't be present. And these cities left would be cities like maybe Austin or something, which aren't nearly as powerful.
Like, my problem with the city-state kind of model is that these megacities are entirely reliant on these hinterlands to feed them resources, and so they have to be integrated within a larger economic framework. Like, you could have like free cities within the Holy Roman Empire, but they had to be within the Holy Roman Empire's economic model.
Yeah, and I think when dissident writers said we have to abandon the cities entirely, it's not really a good move unless you want to become economically sort of impoverished, because that's where most of the white-collar work goes,
Well, like, that you kind of end up with something like a Khmer Rouge situation, and that's completely socially and economically and politically illiterate.
Yeah, like, I think
unless you want to go full Ted Kaczynski, but I don't think many people are willing to join up with that.
I don't think people have an appetite for that. Like, not many people are willing to just abandon technology and, industrial goods. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I think what we're going to need, I actually kind of made there's a map of counties in the U.S., and what I did was I went onto Wikipedia. I can't find the map that I made, but basically, I'm going to calculate the size of, I don't know,
You're talking about, like, the size of, like, red state America?
Yeah, like, I calculated if we did solely red states, and, assuming if we only did it on a statewide basis, which would have very big blue areas in it, we would outnumber Democrats. And here's the thing: a Republican policy platform isn't the end goal. It's just that if there's a national appetite for secession in the majority, and Republicans have an overwhelming majority, we might be able to influence them better than the nation as a whole. So if you look at all the states, and you get like their voting percentages, we would probably be about, I believe, 58-40, which isn't enough. So we could probably compensate for that by getting areas like Oregon, Washington, etc. Probably like California, upstate New York, which into it. We could do it on a bi-county basis.
I think my problem with this is that you're assuming that there's a massive appetite economically and socially for secession, but I just don't see it.
Not yet. I don't see it happening yet. And that actually goes into the next topic perfectly. How would there be an appetite for secession? There's a certain Discord group that I'm in that kind of like looks at these state level initiatives. And kind of it's a very small group. There's only about, I think, maybe 4 or 5 people in it. But they're really fucking good at data. And my data specialization is on these sort of movements to, like, either nullify federal law or to, like, secede from a state and join another one. I think the issue is we're going to, if Biden wins, I don't see it happening, as Biden isn't exactly, like, left-wing enough to visibly upset and terrify the right. The right needs to be scared for
like,
them.
I thought someone in one of our like previous like voice chats said that the greatest threat to the right is complacency.
Definitely, we can.
It's like if you have more like George Bush types, like Nikki Haley winning the Republican nomination in 2024, then you will have something like a George Bush neocon 2.0 or 3.0.
Oh God.
It's like
the issues that I think
versus Bloomberg.
The issues
like
that I don't,
Clinton 3.0.
The boomers, we have to focus on 2024. From 2024 to 2032, that's just basically we need to normalize dissident right ideas on a large scale, and I think actually Tucker Carlson or something like that might be the best person to do it due to name recognition. His youth. I mean, he's not like that young, but he's like 50, which is way younger than most of the people running for president now. I mean, you've seen some of the things he's done. He's talked about usury, demographic change. He's made jokes about the Groyper Wars. Now, people are accosting Charlie Kirk. He's invited Groypers onto his show and had like done 20-minute segments with them.
But he's a soft power man. He's not a hard power man, and
yeah.
I don't think necessarily inviting another TV show host to become the president of the United States is necessarily a good thing.
I understand.
Like, I don't want Tucker Carlson.
But even when I was enthusiastic for Trump like 3-4 years ago, I never could figure out. I knew from the beginning he wasn't really like ideologically, didn't have really that many grounded principles that I could pick out. While Tucker, it's a lot more clear cut. So I think he could betray us, but I don't see him doing it nearly as much as other people, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you mean, but
yeah, the thing is, the 2020
like Tucker isn't particularly ideological either. Like he said, I'm not particularly wedded to the idea of capitalism if capitalism does not meet the sort of living standards that I kind of want to see for my people.
Well, yeah, that's more ideological than Trump. Way more so. I mean, it may not be.
Yeah.
He might not have a coherent ideology, but I think you have some key points that he or principles that he adheres to. Now, the idea is from 2020 to 2020, maybe 2028, 2032, we would essentially attempt to shift the national environment, and the way to do it, like for example, it's already being done. Like for example, the freaking governor and the entire government of West Virginia was inviting all Virginians to openly secede, to fire up Northam and join him. That's kind of like something I couldn't comprehend or see happening even like 2 to 3 years ago. We need to continue that process. And also what we have to do is we have to actually get involved in our own government. And the dissident right doesn't seem to have an appetite for it, because they assume when you get involved in any form of government, you're running a campaign for Congress and talking about federal level issues. I'm talking about just becoming a county commissioner and secretly working in there. It's probably way cheaper to do it than run for Congress, and we could get that done all over the country, and we could probably just... At the first stage of secession would occur in multiple stages. The first stage of secession is sort of, how do I put this? It would be like nullifying enough policies in enough areas that the federal government couldn't crack down on them, and do it in enough policy areas that it would essentially make these counties and states de facto different countries, but not de jure. Like there's a certain degree of independence before we get the full-on independence. And then
I have a couple little issues with this. First off, the sort of local municipal governments are incredibly reliant on their bread and butter is city planning, right? City planning, zoning, very, very minute sort of things. It's not sexy, and it's not ideological. It's managerial. I think the problem is that there's not enough like low culture support to kind of have our ideas sort of integrate themselves into local politics. So that's why like the metagame and sort of information dissemination is more important than infiltrating like low level government. Second off, the federal government has its hands on pretty much every single thing that the state does. As a bridge engineer, I'll tell you that every single bridge that's longer than 30 feet in terms of span is yearly monitored by the federal government. And if you misplace a single paper, poor little interns like me will have to go through like 300 files and redo it correctly, or the federal government will slap them. Every single element of your life is regulated. If you go into like your city municipal code, there are hundreds of pages of regulations that you have to follow and you're not even aware of. It's even worse on like the state level. Everything is integrated. Everything is reliant on everything. All resources kind of feed into this gigantic machine. And this machine is entirely reliant on itself.
The issue...
or it's reliant on other parts of the machine. It's holistic. And I don't see any way of breaking off of this holistic machine. Like, there is no revolt against the federal government, because the states are almost entirely... Like, state infrastructure is almost entirely reliant on federal gibs. Like, what are you going to do? Not build the roads? That's like classic Washington Monument syndrome.
Have you seen the post I gave? It's already happening. We just need to do it on different areas. You see the blue on that map?
Yeah.
Those states all said it's illegal to enforce federal gun laws, and we will nullify them. You know what? Guess when they did that?
When?
They did it during the first half of the Obama administration. He had control, and the first state literally did it, while the Democrats had control of the House, Senate, and the presidency, and most of the governorships, and the judiciary. And maybe you could say Obama was like a bit soft, or he wasn't the type to crack down on it, but they've already done it. Even if, like you say, a court strikes down a ruling, just ignore them. Do you really think the courts are going to send in, federal agents to every single one of the green areas? It's just not feasible, you know?
Yes. I actually do believe that they would do that if it was some sort of real threat.
I disagree.
What you're talking about is the equivalent of sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. It's not. It doesn't piss off the cathedral too much. It's like a little fly. But if you're talking about full on releasing a state or a region from the machine, that's entirely different from this sort of minute taking away your guns kind of scenario.
The thing is, I never said that's what it would start at. What I said was that you would get if these green areas have the political appetite to stand toe-to-toe with federal agents, and actually there have been standoffs with federal agents and they kind of left. I'm not joking. I forget which one, but I believe. Oh yeah, and one. The county where the Bundy Ranch confrontation happened is a Second Amendment sanctuary county. So I think what I was talking about was say, okay, so they're willing to nullify federal law on guns, and the cathedral doesn't seem to be doing anything about it. How about we test out maybe trying to do it for abortion or something, or maybe like an anti-sanctuary city where illegals would be cracked down on by local law enforcement. And then
but that kind of works within the federalist sort of framework that we kind of tacitly have. Like in sort of the deep South, you have anti-abortion laws that are actually kind of making a real difference in saving lives. But I guess you need a significant amount of like ground appetite at a very, very deep level, a deep cultural level. But at the same time, you have places like in New England that have that they're going for absolutely horrific abortion laws in that sort of case. So it's there can be an element of localism. Just whatever you do, don't make it economic localism.
No, we're not. Well, the thing is, we would choose the areas that don't piss off the cathedral first, and we wouldn't actually go ahead and do something drastic until national appetite is built up enough, and we actually have enough local areas which have entrenched institutions. This thing probably would take like a couple decades or so to like fully pull off in multiple stages. It would just it's the thing is, federal law and state law seems to be largely based off of precedent.
Yes, it's kind of like the whole concept of common law, and
I'm already seeing apparently there actually are local areas, local counties, and like I believe some northern states which are making it illegal to abort a baby. So and these are like in blue states, unironically. Just the rural parts where nobody really cares, but some people might say these counties are unpopulated. I need to bring up the map, but there's a crop going on, so, how do I... Well, if, I can't really bring it up, but if you look at the map, it looks like everywhere but the large population centers are doing this. And that's not true, actually. Believe it or not, Maricopa County, Arizona did it. They made it illegal to enforce gun laws. I don't think it was like all of them, but I think it was illegal to enforce red flag laws or laws any more than they're already on the books as at the date of signing. And Maricopa County isn't just it has 4.4 million people, and it's the fourth most populated county in the United States. Let's see what else. I believe not Lake County. Polk County, Florida did it, and they have 602,000 people in it. Let's see what else. Collin County has about... Scrolling down. This list is like... Here we go. It has 800,000, and as of 2010, right now it's about 1.1 million. And even Ocean County, which is in southern New Jersey, it has about... And it has about 500, 600,000 people. So the amount of people living in these areas are in the millions. I don't think, I think if, I think the idea is that, there's an idea that if we were to, do it on a bi-county basis, if we were to, nullify one thing, then do the next, until eventually appetite's ready, we could just leave the United States. The idea that it would only be just impoverished rural trailer park areas it's not like... It's kind of incorrect.
Like I could see like the exact same thing that you were talking about, except applied to like sanctuary cities, like some of the largest counties and states in the United States are sanctuary cities. They won't cooperate with federal law enforcement to hand over illegal immigrants.
And
What's stopping them from, say, seceding from the United States, given the right amount of political appetite and getting away from the racist feds? Like, what's stopping that sort of argument?
I guess it's because they're benefiting from remaining in the U.S., but because they're
well, like places like West Virginia are almost entirely reliant on federal gibs to actually keep their godforsaken state afloat.
And the issue, that's why I think we need these large population centers to keep ourselves sustainable. But the issue is, if I would assume the fiscal policy of this new nation state, which probably wouldn't arise to like the 2040s after a long period of manipulation on our part, I would assume that it would start off pretty poorly economically, but considering how we probably would have way lower tax rates and sort of a virgin market, we could probably we would grow at a much faster rate than the rest of America, because by that point, because the America that remains would be like blue, global homo, mostly minority. It would be like Chicago, but if it was the whole country, you know?
Like, I'm kind of curious, like, why do you think things would work out better in the future than it would have in the past? Like, sort of the lost cause of the South was a lot more and sort of secession, like neo-secessionism, confederationism. That was a whole lot more popular back, like, 100 years ago, and even more so with like Lincoln Rockwell. Like, what was that, like 80 years ago than it is now? There was a hell of a lot more appetite then, than there is now.
Well,
and I don't particularly see much of a point for agitating for out and out like secession when there just is nothing there.
Well, I think the thing is, it would require an effort on our part. It's not going to arise without some intervention. You need, and not like in the thing is with I actually one of the sort of people in that group that I'm in, basically he has like tabs on every single congressman. I believe he I forget, I believe he actually is a contact of a certain congressman. He looks at these state legislator shit constantly. And he says the conservatives will not they won't become sort of, they won't get this sort of attitude until they, something that terrifies them, they think the country would abhor, becomes a reality.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you could not have the rise of Hitler without the absolute garbage dumpster fire that was the Weimar Republic. You need chaos for extremists to rise.
Yes,
I mean, it's
and
a
I
bad
think
example, but
what we're kind of banking on, it's not like actually physically betting, is even though the Democrats seem to be dominated by their centrist faction at the moment, I don't see that remaining for much longer. I actually it seems like there's a Republican rising star and a Democratic rising star, and I believe both of them will run for president. The Republican rising star would be Josh Hawley. I don't think he would be able to save America, but he might be able to shift the Overton window, which is useful. And he might be able to do some things on immigration which buy us more time. But I believe eventually, you might disagree with me, I believe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or someone of her is going to run. Why?
Eventually, yes.
When
the Overton window has been pushed so far left within that sort of community, yeah, I can see that happening.
And the thing is, you might say, another reason is because she is literally developing landmark bills within the party, and she's the one who's creating them as original ideas. I can't see a freshman congressman who developing an idea for a Green New Deal and a ton of other landmark policies. I can't see her doing that as a freshman without presidential aspirations of some sort. You know?
I mean, she's through and through populist. You kind of expect, it's kind of bread and butter for them to have these big bombastic sort of promises. Like I always kind of likened I've always kind of likened this the modern United States to something like late Roman Republic with the Gracchi brothers, like the Bernie and Trump types kind of rising, the populists kind of bulking at the establishment.
And
But the difference is that we have sort of like a Bonapartist managerial elite, while Rome did not necessarily have that. Like,
yes, and like
you have sort of like this massive federal deep state, this massive bureaucracy that is moving in one very specific direction. It's not exactly left, it's not exactly right, but it's moving in some direction. And whether you have like Trump or you have Bernie, it's moving in this one direction, and neither of them could really push it that much without a very, very substantial amount of effort, and that effort would probably come to naught in the end. So I see like Trump and Bernie as kind of like wallpaper, like especially the Republican sort of outer party. Like,
well, here's the thing. Even AOC, if she became president, she probably wouldn't have to even have that much political power. But here's the thing: the boomers, they're probably not going to be the one leading this sort of. They're going to be too old.
No.
Keep in mind, it's going to be probably like millennials and Gen X by that point, or not Gen X. Gen X is going to be like. I unironically think Gen X by like the 2030s is going to be the new boomer generation, except way less powerful. So you're going to have.
Somehow I always see like Gen Xers as even worse than the boomers, because like say whatever you want about how the boomers were absolute garbage and selfish, but at least they believed in something. Like, I don't see the Gen Xers really believing in anything. They're very, very nihilistic that way.
Yeah, so I think I think
So I kind of derailed it.
Well, I unironically think if AOC became president, or just if it would be a wake up call, and how do I put it's we need to I'm not going to actively support these politicians, even if it would be a catalyst for my goals, just because I can't see it as moral to support someone who, like, I don't know, supports abortion and whatnot. I'm not gonna like actively vote for them, but I think I think as the left becomes more powerful, the disadvantage of the left is that they're mostly concentrated in urban, very narrow, heavily populated urban centers. The rest of the country will likely be terrified by the growing, seemingly inevitable march of the left. And the idea is we would bank on that terror and give a solution. And a wave of popular resentment after
kind of like your Viktor Orbáns in Hungary, kind of revolting against the rise of sort of the SJWism in Eastern Europe. Something like that.
I guess, but also it would be like we would probably by that point, I think this map would be a lot bigger, and it would apply on a lot of other issues. So by that point, not only we would be able to ride a wave of popular resentment to the point where people just flat out secede. And the thing is, with AOC or Bernie, I don't see them like as the type to be a war hawk who would just literally send a nuke at one of the cities or if it was like, someone like Biden, yeah, he would probably do it. Trump would probably do it. But, I don't know. I can't see someone like some of these sort of leftists, especially anti-war types, doing it necessarily.
I mean, you talk about how the left is kind of dominating everything within the culture. But I can't see any sort of like workers' movement ever coming about. Like unions are effectively dead, like killed by globo homo, and I can't see like a workers' solidarity movement actually coming out of the woodwork. I just see social isolation which is almost worse in a way, because you can't have political mass movements beyond sort of the trite like Women's March, and it's like, what the hell did the Women's March accomplish? Or the what was the Wall Street, what was the Wall Street protest, what was that called, Occupy Wall Street?
That didn't do anything.
It accomplished nothing. That's why I see political activism being in the future. Technocrats at the head of every decision, with the wallpaper of marches.
Well, this wouldn't be like political. It wouldn't be like organized events. It would just be ordinary people, and outside of cities would be terrified of the policies that they're trying to commit. So, like gun confiscation, extremely high tax rates, forced integration of rural communities. The idea that that these people will be an existential threat who will make your lives hell, and that's using that sort of terror and giving a solution, kind of like being, or the other solution is waiting it out. We will likely be a lot older by the time if we were to do this strategy, but basically the idea is that the United States is going to regress in a lot of areas. Even the managerial elites will become a bit more diverse, just if you look at pure demographics. The military, as it turns out, is actually having an issue where a lot of their candidates or a lot of their soldiers are really bad at following orders. And, and they're like too dumb to do certain things. And this is an active issue, just due to the diversifying pool within the military. And this it will start with the military, and eventually it will go up to other sections of the government. And so imagine the entirety of Chicago, but the whole United States. You know what I mean? Like sort of a fiscally irresponsible, corrupt, inefficient system, way more inefficient than what we have right now. And the idea
didn't Mulbug call it anarcho-tyranny or something like that?
Well, not like I'm thinking more of like a third world. thinking more of like a really poorly developed third world country with shitty infrastructure. And
are you talking about more of like a South Africa situation?
Yes, and the idea is that they wouldn't really have the organization at that point, or they wouldn't have the same chance at beating a secessionist movement then compared to like 2030.
I guess you're assuming a lot of sort of centralized decay, but I can't see that ever happening. I see the strength of bureaucratic institutions increasing rather than decreasing. As bad as things can get on the streets, the bureaucrats are nice and safe, and protected by guns and protected by their wealth. So I just don't see it, unless you had like so like, have you ever seen the movie Elysium?
No.
Something like that could kind of eventually happen. But
well, the thing is, South Africa already has secessionist movements that are successful. Orania, for example. I know it's kind of localized, but
yeah, I could see that being a very good, like, I could see that being an option in the future, but I don't think that's a future we necessarily want to go down.
I understand, but I don't see. I see a decline. In a lot of different areas over the next 100 years. I think that I don't know. Imagine like I can't. Let me think. I just don't. I think the diversity and the caliber of our people is going to get so bad and so diverse that it's going to trickle upward into the elites, because they're just like, I can't see it because the managerial elites, you'll see these minority groups will be like, we don't want minority rule. So,
like, I think the worst counter reaction you'll get is something like a Sargonite, like SJWs being tribal is bad. Let's not be tribal, and let's not organize a tribal resistance against diversity. Like, I just don't like. I see that as like the worst sort of back. Like that's the maximum like pushback that this sort of kind of this sort of movement would actually get. Like, things need to get a whole lot worse before it gets better.
Well, that's what I'm betting on. Things getting way worse. Worse to the point where even elites feel it. You know.
Yeah, we need something like a 2008 times 10, actually shake things up.
Well, here's the thing. Chicago. When I mentioned Chicago being the whole country, the state of Illinois is literally bankrupt because of Chicago. And the city of Chicago is bankrupt. I don't think America in like 2060 is going to have even the funds to like deal with us. I don't think the people running it are going to be as smart as they are now. So the idea is just waiting it out, until because do you see America having the same borders in like 2200, 2100, 2080, 2070?
I don't think the current global economic model is sustainable in any sense of the word. So I really can't see that far ahead. Like the sheer amounts of raw resource extraction and global interconnectivity is reliant on sort of hard power that the U.S. has. It's reliant on debt fueling everything. It's premised on ecological devastation, and it's also pinned on populations and wealth constantly increasing ad infinitum. Or ad infinitum. I just don't. I'm not sure what the future is. Like I'm really not sure. But something's going to break down, and and everybody's going to hate it when it happens.
Well, I think the issue is that I can't see myself living very long if I'm trapped in the within the current borders of the U.S. I think if we don't separate eventually, we're kind of just like. We're children. We're gonna die early. We're gonna be in a bankrupt sort of. Literally, dozens of U.S. states are like cities are declaring bankruptcy, including Chicago. And I think secession is necessary for the safety, maybe not of us, but the safety of our grandchildren. We kind of owe it to them, or else they're going to be like Trump in a perpetual, inescapable hellscape.
Well, like I kind of see what we have in the modern U.S. as something like the Mouse Utopia experiments, where us Westerners are kind of like the beautiful ones who see all of the violence of the surrounding world, and kind of we're celibate. We live in our little concrete briefcase of an apartment. We watch Netflix alone. We don't have kids. Meanwhile, we're kind of replaced by virile third worlders who will work for slave wages. I see that much more as like the future than like something like a pronatalist like secessionist movement coming in.
I just think it's necessary if we want to live past a certain age. How do I put this? I mean, it might be cope, but it's cope with it's like cope, and where you're actually willing to do something about it. I guess how do I put this?
I know. It's like in the Simpsons when Homer has written on his hand, do the opposite of what they want you to do. If they want unity, you want secession. If they want progressivism, you go the complete opposite route. Like whatever you do, don't give in to the current status quo. That sort of mentality. I'm not sure if it's helpful, but it's at least a mentality. It's much better than something like a collapsitarianism.
Well, I don't see a collapse happening. More like a gradual period of decay and decline. That would take decades. And while our living I think like for example, the military is having massive. I said earlier of troops who can't really follow orders or can't really comprehend them. I can't see if we were to get like maybe a couple states to leave the Union in like 2050, 2060, 2070 demographics. I can't see a bunch of you know, I can't really. You know what? I can't see like Jorge or something, or like the demographics making up the military being able to stop it or being able to competently deal with it. You know?
Well, it's an internal rot. It's the rich denizens of a city opening up the besieged gates. Like it's internal rot, and there's not much something like the military could do short of like a coup, which is
well, what I mean
a
by,
little bit extreme.
What I mean by the military is I am talking about the military. Like the military would, if we like, let's say we took a 2050 demographic. Let's say from like the middle of Washington down to like maybe Des Moines, we got built like a nation like that, just, you know, all at once. I think the military would lose any encounters with them. I just can't see them winning. And if we can, and this would be a way in the future. But if we could beat, you know, a really incompetent, mismanaged military, there's nothing really they can do about it, you know. And we, you know what I'm saying?
I think so.
But also, you know, it's the dollar. The dollar kind of gives the United States its strength. But I can't see that remaining for long. Anyway, let's talk about Wignat myths. You know?
Oh, that's a whole lot of fun.
Like
Wignat myths.
I guess you can give one of them. We can go back and forth. You know?
Oh, all right. So I guess it's sort of like a Poseidist sort of mentality of everything needs to get nuked, and in the ashes we'll have sort of like a Fallout style like Caesar's Legion taking over. It's like the Collapsitarian sort of types. Let's withdraw into our own sort of isolated communities and wait out the economic boogaloo collapse. And it's not helpful, and it's antisocial. It's kind of antinatalist. Just withdrawal.
Yes, like withdrawal into,
and also it's a little insane.
Like withdrawal into isolated communities, knowing fully well that the imported class of people can just follow you. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I also mean sort of like the siege mentality, where it's like kill your local mailman. It's like come on,
yeah,
come on.
Like,
that's ridiculous.
Like, I guess an example would be I was there's a channel called The Red Elephants. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, the thing is, there's a lot of his base, or a lot of people who watch him are like unironic boomer WN 1.0 types who you know, I actually do not want to state some of the things they say, just because, you know, the YouTube probably can detect that, you know? But, you know, like, how do I put this? There's gonna be a race war, dude. Let's, you get the idea. The idea that these people who think whites are like a collective group and that they're not gonna stand for, the invasion, you know,
it's a very, very, like, a Meramut sort of mentality.
And yes, like, or like, AOC getting elected will cause civil war. The thing is, if you want to have a civil war, you need the ability to levy taxes on people. You need contiguous borders. You need a person.
But these are like neurotic, antisocial people who can't even file their taxes right.
Yeah, you need like people running it. You need generals. You need probably some equipment, some factories. Just a couple. You know, even if like every city, even there was riots and people like, you know, attacking. If you're not freaking organized in any way, or you're just gonna be a bunch of deemed terrorists, you know? You're not gonna like, and also the idea that how do I put this? That
well, they're terrorists in trailer parks rather than caves.
Yeah, but
it's
also
like brilliant.
But also, you know, how do I put this? I'm trying to think. Actually, no, I'm not. There's one thing I'm not going to bring up, but Fed posting it, basically. But the idea that Fed posting, but on every city in America at once, simultaneously.
Like, just to clarify, like, Fed posting, it's sort of like Poe's law applied to extreme far-right sort of ideas. It's like you can't tell if it's, like, serious, like a federal agent kind of trying to pretend to be an extremist or a person who seriously believes in something so crazy.
Yes, or it might just be, and most of the time, actually, it's people just doing it ironically. But occasional. But did the NRX Files crack down on that?
Yes, NRX Files did physically remove a Black Hebrew Israelite who tried to Fed post.
Oh yeah,
so
I guess even I think Discord has gotten caught on to this point that if you put that people are putting Fed posts, but then in Minecraft, I think they probably caught on by this point. But the idea,
that's a new one.
Fuck. I guess another idea is I don't know, sort of boomer rhetoric where we're not gonna stand for this. These people are anti-American boomer revolutionaries who won't do anything. And
you mean like Facebook types?
Yes, I hate those people too. These people, I don't think they understand how uprisings work. When the American military revolution happened, they were kind of like bankrupt and had to print their own money. But at least they had like borders and representatives of some sort. They had generals. They had some equipment, some supplies they could steal. They had a currency. A bunch of like insurrections happening everywhere and protests going violent is going to do nothing. Nothing.
Like I actually see that kind of as like the sort of boomer posting as sort of precursor to an actual movement. Like you kind of want boomers on your side, but you actually want to have a good firm face on top of it. Like you'll see like Bernie Bros posts on Facebook, and you'll see like Trump tard posts on Facebook. Like any good movement has sort of like that sort of soft power backing, but like you need. I understand what you're saying. We need something more than just boomer posting, boomer revolutionaries.
I guess one more is, I guess people who unironically don't believe in organizing at all. Or, there's two types of these people. Number one are people who just don't care anymore. They got so black-pilled and bitter that they just... You know what I'm talking about? The people like...
Yeah, I see kind of, like, within the libertarian crowd, like, the types who are so fed up with federal control that they just... They retreat into the wilderness and become hermits.
Well, not only that, but also people who just accept it, who kind of like they kind of give up, like honkler, but like people who actually unironically adopt the honkler mentality and slowly get driven into madness. JF actually is kind of this type. People who lost so much hope that they kind of have a need to unnecessarily deconstruct any solutions anyone else gives and assume it's never going to work or nothing will happen and never provide any alternatives. You know what I mean? Like, just never can't really do anything constructive.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I think it's kind of like the Bugman sort of mentality winning over their sort of souls. It's like it's not helpful. It's not healthy. It's like actually, it's also kind of like it's very easy to be a critic and to like search for holes. And yeah, we need critics, but at the same time, it takes a lot more ingenuity and creativity to actually come up with something positively to like stand for. Like if you go out onto the street and ask people what their affirmative political beliefs are beyond sort of like vague like rhetoric, like what their first principles are,
they won't be able to answer.
They won't answer that. And I guess what we need to do is start from first principles and then work our way outwards. Work our way out from what kind of our conservative reactionary sort of values are: home, country, family, wholesome social existence, sort of an economic policy that encourages long-term thinking and long-term understanding rather than extremely high time preferenced debt. like if you start off from first principles and then work your way out, this is sort of like the idealism sort of route. Work your way out towards how would you structure a community or a sort of bureaucracy. After that, everything kind of falls into place, and at that point, we're just arguing over what we want. But I think creating sort of the mimetic propaganda that the left has sort of a monopoly on is what we need to work on. Messaging.
I also think that one of the reasons why the dissonant right is kind of like unable to create ideas is because a lot of them are really young Zoomers who aren't that serious. Even though I'm a Zoomer, I'm guessing you're in your mid-20s.
I'm 22.
Okay, yeah, then you're a Zoomer. But
I'm still a Zoomer, late
yeah.
Zoomer, but
yeah, a lot of these people, especially people younger than me, I entered the dissonant right when I was 14, and that was like 4 years ago. So I guess I'm kind of an outlier. But I will say overall, while I did contribute some positive things, I was sort of a net negative. And now that there are people who were far worse, and far more apathetic and far more numerous, it's really dragging down the caliber of the people who we can discuss with, and kind of like derailing the conversation and preventing like anything to be done. Like I guess that's a good reason why Canis Society they barred people under the age of 18 from joining. Because I don't expect, when I think of a Zoomer, like a really young Zoomer who's in dissonant right, I don't see him like writing up ideas or scripts or doing what I'm doing. What I usually see him doing is making a shit posting, or just using green text or something, making jokes, one sentence responses, and it's basically just poll, you know? And even actually poll is more productive at that point, you know? Because at least back when the Virginia happenings were happening, poll was actually like making a daily repository of sources and stuff like that. This is just, you know, kind of viewing the dissonant right as sort of something to consume. Like I must consume another episode of Z Public Space. I must consume some really fringe podcast that nobody else cares about, you know?
Yeah, that's sort of like the postmodern sort of bugman or like last man sort of mentality, and it's not particularly helpful. But I do see some use in I guess culture jamming the sort of like mainstream left institutions. Like the Great Meme War was definitely sort of a win for us culturally in establishing a community of anti-progressive institutions and thinkers. And
well, the issue is that
it's not a positive ideology, but in terms of negating the status quo, it's decent. And any movement kind of needs that sort of propaganda wing.
Yes, but here's the thing: it's like an army comprised entirely of grunts. Sort of, you're going to have the people who fill different roles, and some roles we are lacking at the moment. Are you gonna be our
Jefferson Davis breaking off from the United States?
Maybe. Well, I don't see myself. Jefferson Davis was imprisoned, so I don't see myself with the modern principles of the left. I don't see myself getting executed. You know.
Yeah. Like fair enough. I like having my head intact.
I mean, if he was sent into prison for like 10 years and then was released, I don't see me like. Okay, I'm not going to lead a secession movement, or if I did, that would be like due to extreme luck. But it's not like.
I mean, if Ross Ulrich got multiple life sentences for creating the what was it called? The Silk Web or Silk Road. If you got multiple life sentences for that, imagine leading the Boogaloo army. Like what kind of penalty that would get you?
Yeah, it's just that leftists philosophically don't believe in the death penalty, so I guess that's one advantage.
But it's so much boring. You're just stuck in a prison cell. You don't even get to like.
This is kind of derailing. What I'm saying is that there are different roles for people in the dissonant right. Some people are, organizers, some people are policy creators, some people are video production sort of people, some people make memes, some people shitpost, some people spread the word. We can't just put all our eggs in one basket. It has to be multifaceted, you know, with different roles. Kind of like when I was reading The Wealth of Nations like a couple of years ago, the first thing they talked about was the specialization of labor and how it's way more efficient, and we need to apply that to our movements, you know.
Yeah, in terms of like a coherent hierarchy, you need something more than just a propaganda wing. You need actual IRL sort of movements. However, one of the reasons why the Groypers did so well was because it was entirely decentralized and could exist without Nick Fuentes. It's sort of a grassroots, like culture jamming movement that didn't need any sort of direction top down. No one needed to tell the Groypers to rise up, and nobody needed to tell them exactly what to ask Charlie Kirk or Don Jr. It was organic. But in terms of actually creating a real coherent movement with figures who are fallible, it's very hard. It's very, very hard.
It is hard, but it's something that must be done if we want to succeed.
You also have to win over some like rogue elites, or at least convert some.
Definitely, that's why I've been recommending, or that's why I think we should get at least a couple dissident writers into Congress in some districts, because you know they can like have a dinner with some people who are like borderline for ideas, and they could just kind of like get a connection with them, maybe red pill them, maybe see what they believe in behind closed doors. But they might be surprised. The purpose these people would serve would most likely be, I can't really come up with one, but if, let's say we made a new nation state, we would need people who know how to actually run the government, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we can't all be collapsitarians.
Definitely.
And we can't all be Ted Kaczynski, just on our own, sending bombs. We like I kind of like live. I like living in a society. I want to
live in a society.
We do live in a society, whether they like it or not. And I'd like to actually build one that's halfway decent, halfway coherent, and actually has a good plan for the future. And I don't think there's any sort of plan beyond immediate consumption.
Definitely, and I think we have a vested duty to change that. You know, it will take a while, but you know, we gotta do it. As someone commented, most Zoomers have no capital and mostly live with their parents. Most don't see any use in acquiring skills because they don't see themselves working. I guess to a certain extent, but I don't think a lot of Zoomers. I don't think the majority of dissident right Zoomers, at least on the older end, are unironically like, give me my tendies, let me work for home with mommy, let be a neat, you know. I think that's a perception, but I don't think that's the reality. But I do think we need to have people of certain skill sets. Here's the thing. I'm rare. I'm kind of rare in the dissident right in the sense that I kind of belong to a somewhat elite family. I'm not gonna like disclose exactly, but actually, yeah, they're very. I couldn't find that many people in the dissident right who belong to sort of an upper class family with familial wealth, and my goal, and I'm trying to use that wealth to like get into an Ivy League school and stuff like that. We're going to need some elites of some sort, and that's kind of the role I can see myself playing.
Like, unfortunately, like especially in the South, where you're around, the sort of hereditary elites in control of the Republican Party in particular, they fall to Fabian incrementalism over time. Like, no matter how based and the lost cause of the South they can get, they won't actually kind of revolt. They've got too much skin in the game.
Well, I just think people like wealthy donors who can like make backdoor deals and kind of like listen, my family isn't anywhere near as wealthy as some like Michael Bloomberg or George Soros, but you know what I mean? Like some sort of like just people who can do deals backdoor to help us.
Mm.
I'm trying to think of an example. Like for example, this is a bit nerdy, but in Star Wars, in the book Darth Plagueis, Palpatine is a sort of an apprentice to Plagueis, who's basically a sort of alien who is part of a banking clan, and basically.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I don't like where this is going.
This is pretty funny. Like if this is pretty funny. Unironic subversives who are connected with banking. I wonder what that reminds me of. But basically, what he would do is he would fund Palpatine's political campaigns, machinations, and would make connections with certain corporations. And Palpatine was more of like the figurehead, while Plagueis was doing a lot of the work behind closed doors. And I think we need people like that. I'd rather not do that, but I guess that might be the role I play.
Yeah. I mean, what's Steve Bannon, for instance? He was bankrolled by the Mercer family, and after like the Mercers are a very powerful sort of billionaire family, and once they kind of had a falling out, Bannon and the Mercers, Bannon was gone. But that's the reason why you haven't heard like Steve Bannon and like his name out in the news in a while. His funding dried up, and so he kind of dried up, and whatever sort of influence he had was gone. Like if you don't have sort of influence within financial institute, if you don't have backing from like financial backing from large institutions, you have nothing. Unfortunately,
Steve Bannon actually still does have a billionaire benefactor, believe it or not. Oh, let me think. Billionaire. Give me a moment.
Yeah, I thought that was the Mercers, and they kind of disowned him.
This is actually, okay. Steve Bannon is actually being funded by a Chinese billionaire named Guo Wengi, and I believe right now he's actually working behind closed doors with different nationalist movements in Europe. Like he has the ear of people like Salvini and stuff. So,
why the hell is he working for the Chinese then?
Well, he's not working. Just some Chinese billionaire who's exiled from China by the government.
Oh, all right, fair enough. Good of an alibi as ever to take on the global homo regime.
Yeah, we could probably like get support from maybe some Russian oligarchs of some sort.
Like pull in Alexander Dugin.
So yeah, sort of.
But Dugin's way too like esoteric for me.
I mean, yeah, but kind of like the Dugin archetype, just applied to our ideas.
Like I always saw like Dugin as sort of like a Palpatine figure pulling things from behind the scenes. Like he's got kind of like that sort of Russian wizard kind of look to him.
Yeah, and actually, one of my first videos was applying the strategies of Darth Sidious to or Palpatine to the dissonant right. That's kind of got what got me started down this path. But I think we kind of been doing this for well over an hour. I think that's I guess the conclusion we can come to. Or not the conclusion. We'll probably make a collaborative video at some point. But
yeah, at some point.
But basically we've kind of not necessarily reconciled our differences, but know where we stand. I think the purpose of part 1 is, or topic 1, is that the United States, or just the West in general, is starting to fracture. Part 2 is that topic 2 is that there is a large feeling of national resentment. Part 3 is just, there are certain ways that we can do it, and part 4 is, not part 4 of the video, just part 4 of the stream, is that we need a multifaceted movement with people serving different roles. Different, like, we need the grunts, the propagandists, the mimetic people, IRL organizers. We need the people entering into institutions. We need the George Soros, but for the dissident right. Except, not like manipulating the financial markets and being a scumbag.
Not defrauding entire nations' currencies.
Yes.
That's not particularly helpful. I like having sort of sort of a retirement fund.
Yeah, so, I think this was pretty productive. I'll, right now my ears are kind of hurting, and I'm gonna take a break from the internet for a bit, so, yeah, alright. This is the Rightcast and Clossington signing out. Have a good one. See you later.